Welcome to another episode of The Local Dive. This is Alex Scott, joined by my co-hosts, Ashlyn Portero and Dean and Sarah. How's everybody doing?
Doing well.
Hey, last episode of the season.
It is?
I think so.
Oh, okay.
Isn't that what you told me?
What is
No.
the season for us?
Never mind. Fake news. I thought you texted me that. Was that in our group text?
I don't think so.
I'm making things up. Good gracious. Maybe I was dreaming.
I was
Yeah,
like, I didn't know we were that put
Producer
together.
Jacob, did you hear that it was the last episode of the season? Never
gonna
mind.
do-
I'm glad. I was actually kind of bummed about it.
I'm
So.
gonna do some
I was like,
fact-finding.
I thought this was a weekly podcast. I didn't realize it was the end of a season.
I must have made that up. Sorry.
Oh, it's because today we're talking about Connect, Equip, Send, and Alex said it'll be the last week of the sermon series that covers that.
Got it.
It'll be the week. This episode releases the week after that series concludes.
Okay. Fear not.
Not
our
the podcast series.
Fear not our mothers who listen to this. We're still
Right.
going
Yes.
strong.
Right.
Yes, we will be back next week.
My bad. Goodness.
I was like, wow, we are way more official than I had realized. I
Oh,
didn't think there
we're
was an
very
end date in
official,
sight.
actually.
I thought we were like signing off for 2 months or something. I didn't know.
No, fear not. So as we jump into another episode, we are going to be, as Ashlyn mentioned, talking through the kind of the theme of the last sermon series that we spent the last 3 weeks in. Dean, as you've preached through a series we've called Clarity on just the vision of the church, where we have a desire to see people get connected, be equipped, and then live sent lives.
Help us.
I was going to say
It
this
might
is-
need to be the last episode.
we are struggling today. But before we do that, before we dive into that, we are going to be spending some time in the shallow end. When we started this series, we had a visitor who came to the church, and they left a review on Facebook. And the way they started the review said, "Liberal pastor who loves Starbucks," which is not untrue, at least on the loving Starbucks part. And so today we all have Starbucks drinks in front of us. We're going to be spending some time just evaluating Starbucks orders and kind of the culture and the people of Starbucks.
Yes, and as liberal pastor who loves Starbucks, I'm definitely an authority on those
There you go.
things.
Yes. So what's everybody drinking?
Oh, yeah, we all have Starbucks in front of us currently
Yeah.
Yes, we do.
because
we
of your
do.
very good friend who brought them all to you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank
absolutely
you.
glad to serve. I used a reward for one of y'all, so I was a little cheap today.
Oh my
but
gosh.
so,
And then publicized it on,
Yes,
on
I
the
did.
podcast.
I'm happy to be a cheap date.
I'm drinking my usual, which is a Trenta ice green tea, a light ice, no water, no sweetener. When I walk in the door, they start making it.
It also looks like a urine sample.
It really does.
Just
Like
to
really
be honest.
unhealthy kidneys.
Yeah, like it really does.
Yeah,
Yeah,
somebody
it's like-
who really needs to hydrate.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
it's like code red if you had that. Yes.
Yeah, they've got rhabdo. Anyways, yeah. So I'm drinking something that is similar in color, but it's a Trenta iced peach green tea lemonade. Very delicious, quite refreshing, wonderful summer drink.
And a little extra.
Only half sweet.
I am drinking an iced honey flat white with almond milk. And I want to just toot my own horn for a second because I was ordering this and then it became a menu item. So like
Ooh.
I would customize my lattes with almond milk. And then when I found out you could do iced flat whites, I would get that, but I would get it with almond milk. I did leave out the honey. I don't know why I hated myself so much so as to like make that mistake. But then now it's just on the menu. And so I love that because it's like I can order my very specific drink, but Starbucks knew to prepackage all of it. So all I have to just
So
say,
you don't feel as extra.
exactly.
I love it.
I'm represented. I like
Strong
it.
order.
What is a flat white?
I can't fully tell you.
Okay.
And I got you a grande because I figured like that's all the caffeine you would want.
Yeah,
I was
absolutely.
trying
I
to think
haven't-
through
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So I wasn't being ultra cheap and getting you a smaller
Producer
size.
Jacob, who drinks coffee, may know more of what. Do you know what a flat white is? Okay, he doesn't know. I think it has something to do with like. I don't even know. I
Okay.
was about to be like how the milk is steamed, but I'm gonna look it up. I just like the way it tastes.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
no,
look it
that's
up.
fine.
Okay, I think it's espresso with, but it's like a blonde roast. Can you do that?
Yeah, I mean, there's blonde roasts.
You know-
Okay.
you know
That I
who-
know.
Hold, please.
You know who would know that knows way too much about coffee? Chrissy and Sarah. She would know.
This
So
is
if you,
like
need to phone
why.
if you need to phone a friend right now, she will know.
I
That-
drink cold brew, and that's about it. So
yeah, like
I'm
I don't know anything
not
about
very informed.
coffee, so I just totally go by like what I don't even own a coffee maker at my house. Okay, so a Starbucks flat white is bold ristretto shots of espresso with the perfect amount of steamed whole milk, and except in my case, almond milk,
And honey.
and honey. So, does that answer your question?
I guess.
It says, okay, here's what Wikipedia says. A flat white is a coffee drink consisting of espresso with microfoam.
Microphone. Okay.
But at Starbucks, I know their signature is that they do it with a blonde roast.
Okay. Is there a non-flat white? Like, I don't know what the equivalent would be. Or what
Now we're getting way too
yeah,
deep.
I don't know.
We need to call it Caleb Hall.
Like,
or
is there
something
is there a bumpy white or something? Like, I don't know. Yeah. So what are like the people who get milk alternatives? Do you do it for health reasons or for taste or for
a little bit of both? Like I don't like love milk. Like I could never drink a glass of milk. That like makes me want to vomit.
Oh my.
So yeah, no dipping my cookies in milk or anything
Wait,
like
so
that.
when we went to a cheesy dairy, what do? Just like go along for the ride?
No, I get
Ice
ice
cream.
cream.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like dairy. I just don't like pure straight definitely not
A
pure
glass of
milk.
milk.
But
Oh,
yeah,
I
a
could go
glass of
from
milk.
the udder. I mean,
That
I
is
definitely.
disgusting.
So
I just got a really bad visual.
so one of my best friends, Ryan West, whose name comes up here about uniforms usually, we used to do the morning news at Deer Lake Middle School. And one part of it was you'd read the menu that day. This is like before cafeterias got like, a diversity of items. It was just like one thing.
Right.
So we'd be like, today's menu is hamburger on a bun, French fries, and milk. Then you go to the next thing. It was like,
Yeah.
tomorrow at 3:00 is, the
Yeah.
beta clubber. So we got sent to the principal's office, which is my dad, by the way, one time because I'm reading it and Ryan and we did plan it beforehand. And Ryan just starts giggling. I think we're in 8th grade. And I said, and straight from the udder, milk. And we thought it was the funniest thing in the world being 13,
Oh my
sent to the
gosh.
principal's office.
Ugh.
So bad.
That's awesome. And the whole school thought you were legends.
Oh, absolutely. Well,
So,
we
yeah.
we were, but yeah.
Before that just cemented it.
Yes.
Cemented the legacy.
So yeah, I don't have like a dairy allergy
Yeah.
or anything.
Just
I
like
do
it.
feel like it's less like whole milk to me. It's like so heavy, and so I don't know. I kind of like I feel like with coffee, sometimes it's like the coffee is strong, but then if I put like the whole milk, then I just feel like I'm drinking like, a lukewarm melted milkshake or something. I don't know. So adding like almond milk is like has like that nutty flavor. Like I don't know. There's just something that's about as deep as I can go because
Yeah.
I'm a Diet Coke
As
person.
long as
but-
I have known you, I never knew you were anti-milk.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'll bake with it, I'll cook with it, whatever. I cannot like cereal I love cereal, but like I don't like a ton of milk in my cereal. Like even that is a little bit of a stretch.
And you're
so,
not drinking the leftover milk at the bottom of the bowl,
No, definitely not.
which I just keep eating until there's no milk left, which then gets a weird.
What's a
there's
good
kind of
strategy?
very well until you then have too much cereal and you have to add more milk and it becomes this weird.
So this will shock
Spiral.
you, not at all. But as you know me as well as you do, but when I love milk, I mean, I love milk, but I don't put milk in my cereal.
Huh.
You're surprised by that?
Okay, here's
That
a
just
question.
sounds like a weird me thing.
Here's a question
I mean,
have.
I don't know. Because you love milk, I just assume you would.
The people who are no milk in my cereal, do you still pour the cereal into a bowl and eat it with a spoon?
Yes,
That like blows my mind. Like
absolutely.
I am sticking my hand into the cereal box.
Producer
and
Jacob's
eating
nodding
it.
his head. He's on the team.
Wow.
I mean,
Interesting.
if I eat dry cereal,
How do you eat it dry on a spoon like that?
I mean, I don't think
I
I've
was gonna
had
say,
cereal
I've gotta
since
use my
19
hand.
I don't think I've had cereal since like 6th grade breakfast.
I had
but-
cereal as a snack yesterday.
So-
Had a little bit of frosted
Interesting.
flakes.
Goodness.
How do you eat your cereal? Let us know if you're
Yeah,
listening.
yeah, bowl, spoon. I want the experience. I just don't want it soggy with milk.
No, you have to eat. That's what the ratio is important, and you have to eat it quickly.
Interesting.
I can't do it.
Okay, back to Starbucks real quick, and then we'll actually move into something that matters. Something that randomly annoys me is when people go in and, like, especially if they're a seasoned Starbucks person, and they're like, I want a medium coffee. It's
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I get it, venti, maybe you're not, like up with the Italian, but like the sizing, but just say, just
Like,
try.
know the
just
place
try.
that you are.
Yeah, try. Like,
yeah.
Venti, Trenta, Grande, what? Like, I know it's confusing. It doesn't really translate, to small, medium, large. I guess. Like, it is kind of weird that tall is the smallest.
I hate that. Even, it's just too confusing for people. And I always feel bad for like the old man. He walks into Starbucks and he's just like trying to figure it out. Yeah. And the worst though is when like I go with Venti, like say the right thing. But the worst is when like the person, like the barista, gives you attitude about not knowing. It's
Like,
like,
yeah,
y'all,
like they don't know
it's
what
like
it is.
chill.
Oh, you meant a Grande?
Yeah, it's like, dude.
Yeah.
Like your nose piercing's gripping a little too hard right there, buddy. Like, it's
Oh
like
my
settle
gosh.
down for a minute.
Yeah, it's like you don't walk into Chipotle and ask for like what is like the burrito called at Moe's, like a
Oh, the home wrecker.
yeah, yeah. I'll have a home wrecker, and they're like, huh?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just you know
Yeah, that's just a random
you're
thing
at
that,
Starbucks,
that
so
annoys me. So,
speak
anyways,
the language.
One thing about Starbucks that's great though is I really do see the same people every day.
Yeah.
Like who go there.
Mm-hmm.
Like people who actually stay and like sit.
So their app right now is genius because there's a game. I don't know if you guys have seen this. Dean, you should play because you could pretty much have unlimited plays.
Let's go.
But it's like their summer game, and it's kind of like, you know how you used to play like pinball on the computer where you
yeah.
you know, it's like just basically clicks the ball, and you know, there's not a ton of skill required,
you
but
hit the space bar or something to
yes,
move the flappers.
Yes. So it's kind of like that, but you can earn stars, like you can earn a free drink, like there's like prizes and stuff, but you get like a couple of plays, and then you have to like buy another item, and that earns you more plays. So it's fun. I'm like that kind of stuff is genius because it's like, absolutely, I will sit on my phone and play this mindless game for like 3 rounds and then want to go to Starbucks so that I can spend more money to get more plays.
How many times a week do y'all go to Starbucks? Would you say?
How many times do I meet with you?
Yeah.
No, that's probably. I mean, I don't go very often.
I'm not even once a week.
Yeah, but now a coffee shop, it's like I'll go to Lucky Goat, you know, locally, but I don't Starbucks. I don't know. I mean, when I'm out of town, usually, like, or maybe if I'm meeting with you or something. But you?
Wrong question.
How many days don't you go to Starbucks?
How many times a day do I go to
There you
Starbucks?
go. Okay, yeah.
I probably go 2 or 3 times a day.
When was the last time you didn't go to Starbucks on a whole day?
Oh man. I mean,
Do you remember?
Was there days in quarantine?
no. I went every day. Girl.
I didn't know if they.
Director.
I couldn't remember if they closed at any point.
I'm like not being ridiculous. Alex, take your pills.
Sorry.
Your alarm. sorry. I really don't know.
Huh.
That's terrible.
Because you go like
No,
on
I just
Christmas.
was curious.
Oh, I definitely go on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know they were open on Christmas.
Yeah, leave a big tip that day. Have to. Or you're a jabroni.
Nice.
Cool.
So let's provide some
yeah.
church clarity.
On that note, we will dive into our deep dive talking about Connect, Equip, Send, the kind of 3 emphasis that we have as a church, and the 3 emphasis that we've spent kind of the last 3 weeks in. Dean, as you've preached through that. So, Dean, I'm going to turn it over to you. And if you want to lay out maybe sort of what kind of how we've been working through this the last couple weeks as a church, and just sort of how you think about these things broadly, and then we'll dive in.
Yeah, just kind of, I don't know if burden's too strong of a word, but just sort of maybe an awareness I developed was just there's a lot of confusion about what is the point of church and what is a church supposed to be and do. Especially on social media, where every outlet of it is like, where's the church on this? When's going to church to speak to this? And it's like, well, what is the church's job? And by the church, I mean us collectively, like as the body of Christ, localized, like our church. Not like the church at large, like our actual local church. Like, what's the point of all of it? So I said, you know what? I think a lot of people just really don't know, and they've never really been taught before. So I wanted to provide some clarity, hence the name of the series, around what the scriptures really point to as the real purpose of the church. So I believe when I read the scriptures that the ultimate purpose of the church is the Great Commission. That does not mean it's the only thing we care about, but that's the ultimate. What makes us unique is that. That's a unique responsibility the church has, the local church, to carry that out. It's very obvious as you read the Gospels, everything was leading up to that. And then Jesus sends that off after his resurrection for actually giving the Great Commission to then his ascension. That's like his last words he leaves with is the promise of the Holy Spirit and to go be his witnesses. And then from there, we've been in Acts 14, looking just at an example of how that was carried out. You know, how the disciples how Paul went to different cities, how he came back, how they were making disciples, teaching them in the way of the word, preparing them to suffer, commissioning people, all of those things. I want the church to understand I want to have clarity around what the purpose and the point of all this is. So we've had a different word every week that actually goes into what Ashlyn calls our buckets.
Mm-hmm.
I'll let her talk through that, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you go to our church website, you'll see Connect, Equip, Send, and those are just sort of buckets that we, I think, use to hold our different ministries and programs and, you know, kind of the practical like outworkings and environments at City Church. Most things fall into one of those categories.
Yeah. So as we think about that, and Dean, as you kind of preach through it too, when we say we want somebody to connect, what are we trying to connect them to? And what does it mean for somebody to be connected?
Yeah, well, two things. One, we want to connect people to Christ first and foremost. That the Great Commission is at its core evangelistic, right? It's to point people to Jesus. It said baptizing them, right?
Mhm.
Like that's the core of the Great Commission. So we want to connect people to Christ, see their need for Jesus, their need to not trust in themselves, but that they are righteous, but to trust in Jesus to be righteousness for them. They need their sins forgiven, right? Jesus came to seek and save the lost. So we think connect to Christ is the most important thing. And after that, we think part of that process is then connecting to the church. So we think Christians are people who are part of local churches. So part of making disciples, as the Great Commission also calls us to go and make disciples of all nations, is to connect people to the church. And it's hard to, I don't think scripturally there is disciple making independent of the church. So we want to connect people to Jesus and connect people to the church.
Good. What does it look like for somebody to be connected to the church? Ashlyn, like if you somebody said, what does it mean to connect at City Church? What would that look like?
Well, practically, we would say that you are, to sort of use the buzzword, like in community, that you are, the church is a people, and so you are connected to people who are united together by the gospel, by the word of God, by, our common profession of faith. I think that for us, connection looks a lot like, obviously we want you to be living life with God, with others. I think that's really the only way that, that's how the Christian life happens. And here, we also want you to be continuing to grow in that life and in, pursuit of holiness and Christ-likeness. And so we have different environments that help train and equip people. And so I think the more connected you are to the life of the church, the more you are really living out the gospel with people. But then, if we want to talk about what are some of the practical ways that people can build relationships, can, learn to come alongside people and feel like City Church is their sort of home church. It typically is by doing things that are going to put you around other people, So we sometimes tend to look at connection as like, how many things am I doing? Well, that's not necessarily, you could come to a lot of things and you're sort of connected by proximity. Like you're exposed to, good, good truth, good teaching, and to other people, but are you actually living life in and among each other? And so I would say the more connected you are, that's what that looks like for you, and that you use the environments and the different sort of practical avenues that we have built, whether that's, classes or a serving ministry, a serving team, or a city group, which is like our community group, small group kind of Bible study, that you're, taking part in some of those things in order to build relationships with people.
Yeah, I think that's helpful. What is the balance? And one of the things that I'm thinking through is like oftentimes we'll hear even, maybe as somebody comes to the church as a first-time guest, they're here for a while, and then somebody checks in on them and they're like, hey, yeah, I left. I couldn't really connect. That's a common phrase I think we hear and I know talking to other church leaders, they hear that too. And it's not, certainly you have to look at that and go, okay, do we have a problem? Like, is our systems broken? Is there something, that we're not doing that we should be? Is there, early on in the church life when we planted, we didn't have a youth ministry. And so it was sort of harder to connect families, especially, and we could get into discussion on whether or not, we should come just to consume, but like those kind of environments and ministries that do help make, families or individuals kind of stick more. We just didn't have. And so if somebody was looking for that specifically, they were going to have a harder time connecting in the church. What is the, I don't know, maybe tension and how do you think about the responsibility of the church's job and work to help people connect, but also the role of the individual plays in getting connected to a local church? How do we think about that?
Well, as my favorite sports talk radio show host Colin Cowherd says, happiness is controlled by expectations, right? So I think church happiness I'm quoting Colin Cowher as a church prophet here, is controlled by expectations. I think you see two different kind of camps, and you can see a different how it plays out in terms of do I feel connected or not. And those who are new to faith, that first come to Christ or first get invited to church and they haven't been since Catholic Mass and they were 10 or, whatever it might be, their expectations are not to, I'm going to go make all my best friends and we're all going to be having each other over for dinner 2 weeks later and I'm going to be known by everybody. They're just like, okay, I'm new to Christianity. I'm really excited to be here. My friend brought me. What do I do next? Kind of thing. So they love the church because it's so new to them, everything happening. If you've transferred around to a lot of churches, you're leaving those churches for some reason or another. They didn't meet your expectations or over time something happened or whatever. So if you come here, which is great, we love people to come here, but if you come here, I like people to stay committed to their churches, but there's legitimate reasons for leaving those churches. The expectation is for a lot of people is that right away they are just fully, in the life of the church and they know everybody and people are asking them to go to lunch afterwards on Sunday and all these type of things. And that just takes time. Mm-hmm. So our job is to provide clear pathways for people. Like that's our responsibility. I can't make friends for you. And who makes friends immediately anywhere in life? And a lot of times for people, for people who've been to a lot of churches, for established Christians, they expect the church to make friends for them. And nowhere else in life is that true. Like you don't blame the junior league that you went there and didn't meet everybody. You don't all of a sudden go, the junior league is I just can't connect, right? Like you would if you didn't make friends right away, you'd try to figure out how to, right? But and I think church is the same way because everybody's people are running and going, they have their families, and I think people need to pay more attention to others. It's another conversation for another time. But your expectations have to be controlled. The old Rome wasn't built in a day thing. That applies to church too. Like you're not going to have like the exact thing you're looking for in terms of relationships immediately. So it's our job to make sure you have the pathways to at least start pursuing those. So I just think expectations need to be more patient for people, that everything is going to be, or if you go to different kind of groups and I went to a city group and I just couldn't connect. Well, like what does that mean? When you say you just couldn't connect, like that the people just weren't like you enough or weren't fun enough or weren't cool enough or were they cliquey? That's a problem. But like, why couldn't you connect? I just like to hear that from somebody. Like, what is it exactly? Are your expectations too high for people? And so I'm rambling a little bit, but that's kind of my mind dump on how I feel about that.
That makes sense. I think if we're answering the question of like, what does it mean? If someone says, I just couldn't get connected or, what was the original question?
Yeah, just sort of what the responsibility between the church of connecting people and the individual kind of responsibility taking.
Right. So I would say that one of the responsibilities on the church is to build a culture where people are welcome.
Yes, definitely.
And are, where people are looking, to bring people in, to invite people in, to welcome them, and I think that is, I don't think that there really is maybe a difference between a big church or a small church in that, because that's always going to be the responsibility of Christians to be outward facing, even within the church, and so just because somebody comes to your church doesn't then mean that you have immediately reached them or brought them in. Like they still need someone who is, you still need to be performing outreach even within the walls of the church and at church gatherings and things like that. So I would say if I'm saying I just couldn't connect at that church, I think my individual responsibility is to ask myself honest questions about, why do I feel that way? Why did I feel like I couldn't connect? Was it because somebody was unfriendly to me or because I was unwelcome? Like you said, Dean, that's a big problem. That's where, gosh, I feel awful that is true for people. I know that it is.
Oh, yeah.
And we should, mourn that and repent of it. Is my answer, well, because it didn't meet my preconceived notions or my preferences? Is it that maybe I wasn't really open, to it? So I do think that we have to ask ourselves honest questions and say, like, did I really take every opportunity extended to me and actually like engage, not just that I showed up to something, but that like I came expectantly and excitedly and and did put myself out there to try to meet people and to see what this means. But also, I think back on the responsibility of the church, we need to always be thinking about how to help people feel included, welcomed, connected, a part of things. And sadly, I think sometimes in our culture, we are so focused on ourselves that it can be, we kind of get caught up. We're all looking like with, how our experience can be optimized first. And I think that's, that's not Christian and that's not how the church ought to operate. And so there is sort of this mutual responsibility for the church and the individual to, I think, put off the ways that we naturally are drawn to be because of the culture that we're shaped in. And so, yeah, I definitely think it's there's responsibility on both ends.
That was really well said. That was great.
One of the things too that I, as you were talking, Ashlyn, that I was thinking about, and I think, Dean, you kind of touched on this too, that I think I see most clearly oftentimes in terms of people desiring friends and having a hard time connecting is people who have been in, who have grown up in the church. And so they were in maybe they were involved in their youth ministry. They had friends, their parents took them every week. And so it was very easy for them to connect and to gain friendships. And then just because they were spending a lot of time together, it maybe didn't happen quickly, but because they were there, over time it did. And then they come into college and you never have more time to hang out with your friends than you do in college. And it just friendship happens everywhere. And then you enter the workforce and kind of, you're an adult in college, but sort of true adulthood out of college. And it's just really difficult for people because then they are responsible for showing up, like you were talking about, Ashlyn, and kind of coming into things and making more intentional effort. And that's just somewhere where I've seen a lot of people get stuck in that transition of, and then that's where they feel like they don't connect because maybe they're they were here, they had friends leave who, they didn't leave and they didn't move away and all their friends are gone. And they're kind of looking at I don't know how to make friends in the sense that, or I don't know how to connect here because it happened so naturally. They didn't really have to work for it. And that's just something that I think you have to be, to your point, Ashlyn, sort of aware of kind of maybe where you are and what it looks like to be connected and how to work through that because the assumption otherwise is just it'll just happen,
I wish I'd have said this in my sermon on connecting more. That I wish I'd have talked about how if it's part of our buckets and our sort of vision for how we want people to move into our church and move through our church is that not only is it your job, we want you to connect individually, but if that's true and you're part of our church family, then you need to see yourself as a connector.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Right, where your eyes are wide open. I forget who first said it. That at their church, someone standing alone is a state of emergency.
That was Rebecca McLaughlin.
Was it Rebecca? I love that. Yeah, Rebecca's awesome. I love that. And I know her church too. I know the pastor of her church, and I forgot it was Rebecca, and he's fantastic. So that goes all the way through a church DNA and culture there. I just love that. So I just want people to feel that way and think that way. But a lot of people, they aren't satisfied just being said hello to. Mm-hmm. If no one's spoken to, forget about it. They're gone. You'll never see them again. But they really want friends. So what it look like, I'm not saying go up to a stranger and then you're going to lunch right afterwards. I'm saying engage somebody, get to know them, or get to know the basic facts about them that you can in a quick conversation in the lobby. Mm-hmm. Then when you see them again the next week, if they're by themselves again, or you see a new family, or you see whoever it might be, go, hey, we're going to Sonny's after church. Y'all should come with us. That kind of stuff right there, that's what people are looking for. They're not looking for someone to say hello to them. That's almost that's the first step of are these folks nice or not?
The bare minimum expectation.
like Doug Dortch I remember used to say, people aren't looking for a friendly church, they're looking for friends. Mm-hmm. And that's really true because every church thinks they're friendly and people want to build relationships.
Well, and I think, the church should look, different than, really than anything else in the world and in our societies. And so, it is designed to be communal. And there's a lot of things that we go to, when you go to work, your first thought walking in the door probably isn't this is a special chosen community set apart to show the world X, Y, Z. You know what I mean? That is what the church is. Mm-hmm. And so, there are other areas of our lives where it's easier just to float in and out as an individual, and we're not, we're not looking for anything more, or we are, we sort of form relationships just by proximity, you at school and at work and different things. You you kind of just adopt the people that you're next to, because it's like, well, what else am I going to do all day? Whereas at the church, it's so different. And so I also think that we have to remember that it's even more important for us to seek people out, because a lot of people coming to church, we can't expect someone who's completely unchurched or who doesn't understand what a church community is to all of a sudden think of the church as the central place in their life, right? Like they're thinking about church is another thing that I do. It's on my weekly list of things, or even it's another place I go to make friends. Even that falls short of like what it actually is. And so, I think going back to your question, Alex, of like, what is the responsibility of the church in a practical sense? We think about Connect. Like if you were to look on our website, our bucket of Connect has things like our Connect class and, kind of our connections process and some things like that. And those are just practical tools for sharing information, for giving people a glimpse of, what it looks like to sort of be involved in the life of City Church. But it's not, I think, how you actually connect people, it doesn't happen just through attending those things.
Sure.
Yeah, I think, somebody could come to our Connect class and not technically be any more connected when they leave than when they showed up. But in that environment, we are trying to show people, okay, this is what it looks like to live as a part of this community. I mean, it's because in the same way that you can go to a Florida State football game, be surrounded by a whole bunch of people and feel a sort of sense of like community with those people, you're not any more connected to the people 3 sections away when you leave than when you showed up. And people can engage with the church in that way. But the Connect class isn't just, hey, here's some things. It's like, no, here's opportunities that we have and steps that we, kind of avenues and steps that we have for you to take so that you can live the Christian life more fully, so that you can be a part of this community that is set apart, that is, Dean, as you said at the very beginning, to, fulfill the Great Commission, to make disciples, to baptize people, to see people, to know and understand and believe in the gospel, and then join into that life. And so we have to be able to say, yeah, this thing doesn't necessarily connect you, but it is the avenue through which you can be connected into meaningful relationship in the church.
And I was saying, shout out and respect to anyone right now that's trying to connect new in a church during COVID.
Yes.
It's just not easy.
No.
So we're asking for grace and a mulligan during this time.
So one of the things that's on that topic that we've touched on a little bit, you both kind of, I think, Ashlyn, you said it, and then Dean, you echoed it. Like there's, this baseline assumption that people are going to come to a church and be welcomed. What are some steps that a church can take, if there's church leaders listening to this, that can make sure that they are welcoming, like, not just that they're meeting the bare minimum. Somebody said hello to me because like Betty, the bulletin passer, is going to say hello. Like, so we've got that covered. What are some steps and maybe some culture pieces that, like somebody standing alone in the lobby as an emergency? What are some things that they can use to either evaluate whether or not they're a welcoming church, or maybe some things that they could do to put in place to help with that?
I have 2 things that come to mind immediately. Get to church early and stay after. Like, it's worth the 10 minutes because new people come early. A new person's rarely late. So see yourself, even though you might not be on our official hospitality team, see yourself as a church member as unofficially on that team, and just to come, what would it look like for you just to get here 10 minutes earlier? If you can get the kids to school by 7:30, 8 o'clock, or whatever time, you can get to church by 9. So we don't want you to. So that means you can also do it by 8:45. So that, I think that's just a culture thing. We running in just to get there and checking with our heads cut off and making sure the kids are dropped off and I'm inside by the second song and then out the door as soon as it's over. Like that's just kind of a wrong view of the opportunity and responsibility we all have to really try to engage people. So I just think that doesn't sound like anything astronomical, but I think that's a culture shift for churches that we are definitely not the greatest at. I think it's just something simple as that. Like, I'm going to start getting there early, and we're going to go around and look for people. Yeah. We're going to say hi to people. We're going to see our friends too. we're just going to get there earlier. We're going to make a commitment to do that.
You're not getting to your seat earlier necessarily.
Yeah, you're hanging out in the lobby,
Yeah.
or a great time to do that is to walk around. Walk around sounds strange. So, like, go in the lobby or in the auditorium at 8:15. You will see some new people who are sitting in their chairs, looking straight ahead. And so what a chance to go out there and go, hey, I'm Jim. It's really cool to meet you. This your first time here? I've never seen you here before. Oh, you've been here before? Oh, my bad, but it's good to finally meet you, or whatever it might be. Those type of things.
Well, and something that a way that I've seen that modeled. There was a gentleman who used to go to church here, and he, as we all tend to do as creatures of habit, like we sit in the same general location every week. And so he made it a point basically to get to know his section every week.
I love that.
And so at the beginning of service, if because he got here early or he would stay late and he would say those things like, hey, I've never seen you here before. This is my name, let me get to know you. And then he just made that connection. And that simple little thing of staying and engaging or coming early and engaging makes a huge difference in the life of the church. And the reality is, too, like, we need church members. We need the collective body of the church to do that, because regardless of the size of the church, the staff is never going to be enough. And the designated volunteers is never going to be enough. We need people to kind of own and help carry that vision, to see people actually connect and then stick around long enough to attend a Connect class, to hear about city groups, to go, join a serving team, and then get into, because maybe you're not the person who's going to be their best friend at City Church, but you may be the interaction that keeps them there long enough to get to a place where they can find their best friends.
Yes, with you.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, I would agree with all of that. I think, kind of approaching the morning or whenever like your church gathering is with, how can I focus my attention off of myself, and onto other people is always really helpful. I mean, we're just fighting against everything in culture that says that, our life is about us first. And so I think, just trying to be others focused, like the church is, not an exception of like where you can practice that. And, trying to take it a step further with people. Like if you're on a, serve, like let's say you serve in the kids ministry, and you're in a classroom with someone, there's like another worker, volunteer in there with you, like asking a question about their life. Like, I mean, all the ways that we make friends in any other area, but just applying those. I read a quote in, I think it was Amy Bird's book, No Little Women, but she was talking about serving in the church. And she said one of the best things about serving is how it helps you learn to get along with others. And I thought like that's sort of a different conversation than, we're talking about, but in the context of being welcoming, looking for ways that you can be a part of the church in order to get to know other people, so that when people come in, sort of what you guys were talking about earlier, like if you walk in a church and every single Sunday the bulletin person says good morning to you, like that's nice. But when I'm coming in on a day where it's like I'm just carrying a heavy load and like I don't even want to be there, and I'm just, life is hard and all of that, hello is not always enough. I mean, it's nice to be seen, but people want to actually be seen, not the person at Publix welcomes me, when they hand me my cart. I don't feel like a personal deep connection to them. And so I think any way that we can help people not feel like a number, especially in a big church, although that can be true in a small church too, but in a big church, it's people are coming through faster than you can have a personal conversation with everyone, sometimes. And so those are just things I think it is all cultural. And then just making sure that our connection points and things like that people really actually feel welcomed, like they're not just getting a sales pitch, or that they're not just, going through the motions of, the pipeline or whatever, but that all of this is centered around, life together and life with God.
Yeah. Sometimes our lobby on a Sunday, just with traffic, for people can feel like an airport, terminal, just in and out, people moving, a lot of people, like it's, I told someone one time, pretend like you're rushing through the airport. And then you, not even because you're late to your flight, just because that's what we do. We just kind of go and start. And then you see a celebrity in the airport, like a known celebrity. What are you going to do? You're going to stop. You're going to stop, right? You might be too shy to ask them for a selfie or something like that, but you're at least going to be like, oh, there's Hulk Hogan or whatever, that kind of thing. Shout out to the Hulkster brother. So people, if we really do believe that people matter to God and that coming here on a Sunday morning is a wide open door for folks to be able to get exposed to the gospel and the Great Commission to be right in front of them, where they're coming to us, we didn't even go to them. Treat someone like that. Like if you can just see, stop what you're doing and all of a sudden be in their world. And right now, you can't even see half their face because they're in a mask. But at least that connection. So I want someone to basically be lying if they came here and said nobody tried to do anything. No one tried to talk to me. No one tried to say a word. I know it does happen, but I want to get to the point culturally where they're seriously making that up if they say that.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we try to remind our staff of, that I know I have to fight against regularly, is there's, especially on a Sunday, there's this temptation because, you interact with these people all the time during the week, talking about other staff members, and, maybe there was something on Thursday that I forgot to talk to somebody about or whatever, and then this is my first opportunity to see them, and it's easy, it's just easy to gravitate towards people that we know, and so the temptation for staff is that, you can get these huddles, and it's easier to talk sometimes to the staff person that I know about, maybe it's something important work related, maybe it's just, how was your weekend? And there's somebody that I'm neglecting that is new to the church or that isn't well connected. And it's at the end of the day, I don't need to talk to any of our staff so bad for 15 minutes in the lobby on a Sunday, 99 times out of 100, where I can't have that conversation later and go, that person's more important. And so that's just something that I have to remind myself, even, it's that, okay, yes, I know these people, they're important to our organization, but right now, the person I don't know is far more important, or the person that I only see in this hour, maybe it's somebody that I do know, through the church or whatever, but it's more important for me to connect with them in that moment than it is for me to connect with the person I see 5 times a week.
Yeah, this isn't taken out of context too much. It's kind of a outworking of leaving the 99 to go find the one.
Yeah.
It's a little out of context, but that principle's there, and so I think that's kind of how we have to view it. So I think it's a culture thing, like Ashlyn first said, it's a culture thing. So we want you to make an effort to connect, and then anyone who calls this church their home to see themselves as connectors. Mm-hmm. And I think that's happening. You got a really good chance to see disciples made in the context of local church.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on how maybe that connector piece, how people attending the church can be connectors? Any
celebrity in the airport.
Yeah.
Okay. And invite somebody to go to lunch afterwards with your family if that's part of your routine. If what we do, if a lot of that's a thing, especially in in the South, it's people go to lunch after church, a lot of folks, and invite someone to come with you, pay for their lunch. I just think things, just efforts like that, just making a point, pay attention. It's some things pay attention, the people that sit around you. Mm-hmm. When you're walking into kids to pick up your child after the service, talk to the person who's walking next to you to pick up theirs. It's an awareness, just noticing people. Other people exist. Those type of things. So,
well, that's good. Well, we kind of talked quite a bit more about Connect than we anticipated, so we'll actually turn this into a 3-part series. We'll tackle Equip next week and then Send the week after that. So hopefully it'll be a helpful conversation as we continue to flesh these things out and have some hopefully meaningful conversation on that. As we transition into the Local on Tap, we're going to go right back to where we started.
Let's go.
Talk about Starbucks.
Local drinks.
And, drink
Drinking local.
And real quick, if you were going to Starbucks in Tallahassee, what is your preferred location?
I mean, the one closest to my house is the one at Thomasville Road and I-10. It's also always busy, and unless you have an hour in your day to sit in the drive-through line, well, not even it moves quickly, but it's just always backed up. But I mean, that's the one that I go to, so that's the one I'll choose.
Her favorite one is on Magnolia, but we'll talk about that later.
I'm gonna leave that alone. And so I don't actually go to this one very often, but the Southwood Starbucks is awesome. They built a freestanding one.
Yeah, that one's really nice.
And it's super nice, super spacious. And every time I've been there, it's not been too busy. It's just on the other side of town. So
it's a different time zone from where you live.
Yeah. So it's on the coast, basically.
So I feel like you're asking me to pick my favorite child. But
Oh my gosh.
I love them all. But
you know what? I've really become a John Knox and Monroe guy.
all right.
It's probably the worst setup. It's like small and it's just kind of narrow. But like I've really gotten to know everybody there that works there, and they were the first one to open up seating during post lockdown. So that's where I went. So I think that's my spot right now.
spot. All
Yeah,
right.
like on the run, Trader Joe's, Starbucks, like in that parking lot. Like on the run, I'll just run through there for like a mobile order. But like to sit down and like hang and just like do some writing and get things done, that's kind of my spot right now.
So is it the Trader Joe's Starbucks or Smashing Olive Starbucks?
Yeah, when
I'm
you
not-
say that, it really hurts my feelings. So it bothers me greatly that we would associate the two.
well,
Yeah.
they're all in the same plaza. Anyways,
But in this town, it's kind of cool that like you don't have to. Kind of cool. I don't know how to word it really. I like the fact that when Tallahassee's small enough to where you can go, what's Starbucks? And you can just say to somebody, the one at Trader Joe's, and they'll be like, oh, okay. They know exactly
Yeah.
what you mean. Right?
Yeah.
Or yes, I just randomly like that.
yeah, that's cool.
We're small enough where you can just give those you don't have to give directions or an address to say what Starbucks. You can just kind of say where it is.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you all for listening to another episode of The Local Dive. We hope this is helpful conversation, and we will see you next week as we dive into Equip.
Thanks for listening to The Local Dive, a podcast diving into deep and shallow musings about Christ, the church, and culture. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. You can follow The Local Dive on social media and continue the conversation with us on Instagram and Twitter at The Local Dive Pod.